Welcome back to Our Journey into the Human Experience, the show where we look at what it takes to push the mind, body, heart, and spirit beyond its limits. Because that was what the human experience is about. It's about discovering how far we can go and then pushing that line, leaping off the cliff and discovering the unknown. Because the unknown is where possibility lives. Now, we've had a bit of a hiatus because, as you know, I have been training to run across every country in the world. In a few days, I'm heading to the Caribbean to run across 4 more countries. I got 20 more countries planned the next year. I am absolutely living my dream, living my passion. And that's what the human experience is. How do we create that? How can you create that? If you have any desire to discover how far you can go, to push yourselves, so you can really live a full life, do what you enjoy. It doesn't have to be running across the world. Live whatever your passion is, and this is a show for you. And I have got the perfect guest on the show for you today. Her name is Barry Davenport. She runs this blog, Live Bold and Bloom. She is a passion coach. She helps people live their passion. You can see here her blog is absolutely amazing. She has packed with amazing content. Read about her story. She's had quite a journey about how she discovered her passion. And definitely sign up because you can see this. She's already got 20,000 plus readers. Got an amazing readership, amazing audience because she provides a ton of value. And on this interview, you're going to learn so much. I got so much from it about how to live a passionate life. And it really kind of got me thinking about the whole thing in a new ways. So if you are not living your life with passion, or you maybe even figure out a way to expand your life, get more passion in your life, then stay tuned because you're about to get your mind blown. This is going to be awesome. So without further ado, here is Barry Davenport. Hi, Barry. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time and just you coming on. It's been a real honor. I know this has been kind of taking a little while, but I've been really wanting to speak to you. I really resonate with your website. I've just been showing my readers all about it. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'm so glad we finally made it work out, and look forward to talking to your readers.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad to share your wisdom with them.
Sure.
So before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about you and how you kind of started Live Bold and Bloom?
Sure. Well, let's see. I started it in 2010, and I kind of went through my own life passion journey, I guess, at that time.
Yeah.
I was a public relations executive for many years, for over 20 years, and was raising my children, and my oldest daughter was an aspiring ballet dancer. So the last few years of high school for her, I was spending a lot of time helping her achieve that dream and driving her 60 miles round trip to her ballet studio every day, which took up a huge chunk of time. And I had to put my consultancy on hold so that I could help her do that. And then when she went away and pursued her own passion, I was sort of standing there holding the bag in a way because I no longer felt any attachment to my PR work. And it was a real shift, a big shift in my consciousness and in everything inside of me at that period of time because I knew I needed to do something different and find something that felt more authentic and real to me. So I started the search for that thing, and it led me to coaching, and I went back to school and got a coaching certification, and I started a little blogger blog to help me market the coaching business and learned about blogging, and then that became a passion. And the rest is history. I just got into all of it so much that it felt like play. You know, every day I felt like I was just doing something I loved. And the blog has just grown. And now I have another one, BarryDavenport.com, that focuses on life passion. So that's the short story. You want the long one?
No, that's amazing. I actually really admire the sacrifice you made for your daughter, and kind of putting what you had going on hold for that. I really admire that.
Well, you do these things for your children, and she, as a young person having such a strong passion, you want to accommodate that, and she had a natural talent, and so you want to give them the opportunities if they express the interest and desire. So, it wasn't as though at that period of time I was just like so extremely excited about my PR consultancy that I couldn't give it up. I had felt over a period of years that I was waning in my interest and desire to pursue it.
Got it, yeah. But having done it for so long, you said, 20 plus years, right? That you were.
Yes, that's correct.
What was it like when you first quit? And then decided to start your own thing? How there must have been a lot going on in your mind, I'd imagine. How was that experience for you?
Well, the quitting was more transitional, I guess, because I had a consultancy. I'd worked for many years in corporate and agency PR and and then I had my own consultancy. So I started to slowly back off the number of clients I took as I increased the time that I was having to spend with my daughter, and I have two other children as well, so raising them. So I backed off. And then when it got really intense with her, I had to stop working almost altogether. And then as she left and I had more time, I tried to re-energize that career again and, kick back into the consultancy and get new clients. And, it felt like just slogging through quicksand. I just couldn't get any energy around it.
Yeah. Now, with starting a blog, though, and kind of growing it from scratch, I know there's 160 plus million blogs out there, and obviously you have a successful one. Was there any kind of fears that you experienced when starting this, or did you just kind of leap into it? How was that mentally for you?
Well, I was thinking that my business was going to be purely a coaching business. That's what I got into coaching for, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to really build this coaching business. And I got into blogging just as as an aside, basically. And then as I started learning more about blogging, and the access you have to meeting so many nice people like you and people all over the world, and writing and helping so many more people because you reach so many more people, and creative aspects of it, getting to design the blog and the pages and the posts and all of that. I just loved it. So it was almost like I was having to tear myself away from other things because I wanted to be blogging all the time.
Got it, yeah.
And so that natural interest just kept expanding, and I kept spending time doing it until it became a business. So I didn't have a lot of fear around it. The only fear that I really had was the technology part, because my brain isn't really wired that way very well. So I had to learn a lot of that from scratch, and I had a fear of computers and technology because I sort of missed that boat in my career and in my education. But I did learn it. You push through things. If you really want to get to one goal, you can push through the things you don't like.
Yeah, of course.
And so I did. I took a blogging class and studied and, went down various dead-end paths, throughout my several years of blogging, but eventually figured it out. Mainly by keeping in mind what my readers want and need and serving them. And then people come to you.
Got it. Yeah. So what are some of the, because one of the things that I talk a lot about on Existing Living as well is about entrepreneurship. I see that also as the kind of access and the pathway to creating that life of freedom, so you can do what you want. The cool thing about blogging, you can do it from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So what were some strategies for those listening that you used that worked well in growing the blog to be running the successful business that you are today?
Yeah, well, from the beginning, the strategy when you first start a blog is just to get eyes on it, right? Aside from your mother and your best friend. So you want to continue to write great content and content that attracts people to say, man, this stuff is good. She's offering something useful and valuable to me. And to know, who your audience is and what you're talking about. And you don't have to be an expert at the beginning, but you have to offer enough expert information that attracts people and makes them walk away with something valuable that they can use in their daily lives. And then there's some practical techniques like guest posting and learning a little bit about search engine optimization, and having a free opt-in product that attracts people to your site. There's some practical strategies like that, but I think the main one is consistent, good writing that serves your reader.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense to have that.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, too, that you kind of made some, that, you went on some dead-end paths. So what were some of the mistakes you made, or, what was the information that you wish you had today that you maybe didn't have back then in growing this journey?
Yeah, well, I had so many different interests in terms of what I wanted to do online and had some opportunities come my way. I was the editor and part owner of a site called The Daily Brainstorm, which was an aggregate blog where we fed in different bloggers' posts, and every day we had to update it and edit the post and that sort of thing. And it took a lot of time and energy, and it pulled me away from my time spent on my main blog. I learned a lot. I met a lot of great bloggers that way because we asked a lot of different big bloggers to come in and submit their posts. But it ended up pulling me away from my focus. And that's really easy to do when you're online. There's so many people out there doing various things that are interesting, and you think, maybe I should be doing that,
Yeah.
And focus is really important. if you want to get something, moving and get traction, you've got to stay focused on it. So that would be my, the things that I did that I would consider or reconsider if I had to do it again would be staying more focused.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that I actually recently read one of your blog articles about that idea of staying focused and how it can get a bit overwhelming when we first start like living our passion. There's all these different paths to take. And what, like how did you, I guess, narrow that? How do you prevent overwhelm when you first begin, start embarking upon your journey of living your passion? Because I know I went through that a lot myself. I was just overwhelmed. How do I start? There's kind of like a bit of fear. Am I going to succeed? How do you navigate your way through all those mental barriers, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I have a whole course about that. There's a lot. There's a lot to that, but I'll give you the short answer. You really have to sort of be an investigator in your own life and start learning as much as you can about yourself. And that starts with your personality type and your intelligence type. Some of those basic things that, maybe they take you through in college or high school or whatever.
Yeah.
And what your natural skills and aptitudes are, so that you're sort of playing to your strengths rather than, sort of searching in this broad field of everything.
Yeah.
Because you really do want to play to your strengths when you're looking for your passion. And then also doing the investigation, the internal investigation of what's holding you back from a lot of the things you really want in your life. Because we all have these fears or self-doubts or worries and concerns or just roadblocks in our lives that keep us from taking action. And some of those are legitimate. Maybe you have a family and you have to, maintain a certain income level. And some of them aren't legitimate. They're just stories that we've told ourselves. And you have to sort of sort the wheat from the chaff, decide what needs to be addressed practically, like saving some money maybe, or talking to your spouse about it, or deciding to downsize your home, whatever those practical things are.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it is addressing the stories and saying, are these really true? Have I just built up this smoke and mirrors kind of brick wall for myself? And so it's a process of tearing all of that down. Yeah. And then another process is really getting into all of your interests and figuring out what those interests are and defining your values and how your interests and your values match up. Because if you're doing something that's against your core values, you'll never be happy.
Yeah.
You might have a value of having a peaceful, calm life, but you're offered a great job that requires you to travel 5 days a week. So those are in conflict, right?
Yeah.
Even though it might be a job you're passionate about, but if it doesn't support your values, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
And then as you get to the point where you sort of narrow the field down to a few things you're highly interested in and you think might be your passion, doing enough experimentation or practice in those things where you really get a feel for it, where you really are immersed deeply enough that you can say, okay, I can kind of feel like what this is all about, rather than just making a decision off the top of your head or with what you kind of think it's about. You practice, or you volunteer in it, or you shadow somebody, or you find a mentor, so you have some more in-depth knowledge about it.
Got it.
And then when you get to that point, you kind of have to take a leap of faith.
Yeah. It's a big step, of course. No, I know what you mean.
It is, but you learn something from everything. I mean, even the mistakes that I said I made before, there's so much I brought to the table from those situations. And they helped me realize what I didn't want to do in order to focus more on what I do want to do.
Yeah. So now with all those kind of steps, and I love the way you kind of broken it down to a step-by-step framework, almost like a formula for living your passion. That's really cool. I think like simplifying that is ultimately what we need, right? So to prevent all that overwhelm. But so with all those steps, in your experience, you've obviously been doing this for a while and you're very successful at it. What is the biggest mistake, or what, maybe not necessarily even just one mistake, but what are some mistakes that keep people from living their passion? Like what is it that stops people?
From living it or finding it?
I guess from both. Let's address both. Yeah.
Okay. Well, from finding it, I think people just either they don't really believe that they have a passion, that they've never felt it, so they just think it's not there. I don't even know what this thing is that I'm looking for, so how can I look for it? And I don't even know how to go about looking for it, even if I did know what it was. So It's this big nebulous sort of thing, this blob, that you're longing for something that you don't know what it is and you don't know how to go about it. So you're stuck. If there's no one to tell you or help you or whatever, then you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then some people think they know what their passions are, but they're afraid. They're afraid that, if they give up their current job, they might, be destitute, or their wife might leave them, or something might happen.
Yeah.
Or they're afraid they might fail, or that people will think they're stupid or making the wrong decision. A lot of people, go down one path for a long time in a particular career. They've invested money and time and education, and so they feel like, what will people think of me if I give all this up, and what will I think of myself? So it's a hard decision to make. And then in living, there's some people who get to the point of finding their passion, but then they can't figure out how to make it real in their life.
Yeah.
They can't figure out how to either get the money they need, or get the education they need, or get past some of those roadblocks that are inside of themselves. They take the step, but then it feels scary, so they step back into their old life. And sometimes people have to do that several times before they have the courage to make that leap of faith.
Yeah.
Those are the main roadblocks that I see with people.
Yeah, and that really makes sense. It actually reminds me of a Tony Robbins quote. I think he said that success is never a matter of resources. It's resourcefulness that ultimately stops us. And it sounds like you're saying very similar things.
Yeah,
that
that's
it's our
true.
own kind of mental barriers that stop us.
Absolutely. And the ability, to get comfortable with uncertainty and discomfort. To be able to say, okay, this is a weird process. It's taking me through, making decisions that are uncomfortable for me and that leave me feeling nervous and doubtful. But I'm going to have to use my brain and sort of weigh the pros and cons. And at some point, whether the chasm is this big or this big, you have to make the jump.
Yeah.
And you can narrow the chasm by using your brain and asking yourself questions and doing research and investigation. But still, there's going to be that point of uncertainty where you have to say, I still feel wiggy inside, but I'm going to make that leap anyway.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's kind of like a muscle to build, almost like that
It
muscle.
is a muscle to build.
Yeah,
and you can practice that, even in small things in your life, just doing things that make you a little bit uncomfortable to see you're not going to die.
Yeah. Okay. So if you had to say, to kind of bring that to an actionable takeaway, like maybe going out and practicing things people could do on a daily basis, some little things that make them uncomfortable to kind of build that muscle. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Or even as you're working towards your passion, little things that make you uncomfortable, like if you're thinking about changing jobs and the whole thing feels like, oh my God, I can't change jobs. What if you just write your resume? Just write it. And that doesn't commit you to anything. It doesn't make you, leave your current job, but it's a forward positive action and forward moving positive action. And it gives you a little momentum. So you feel comfortable with that, and then maybe you just kind of look up on the computer a couple of jobs. Maybe you send one resume out, So you get comfortable with those baby steps.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of breaking the baby steps. That's cool.
Right.
So one thing, and I'm actually curious about what your thoughts are, because I've heard this idea of kind of living your passion, or people talk about it in, you sometimes hear it thrown around, and I've heard people say, so what does it really mean to you to live your passion? Like, what is that? And, because that's obviously what your blog's about. That's what you help people do. And I love it.
Right.
Like, I really resonated. But what does that really mean to you?
Well, I like to equate that feeling with the way it is when you first fall in love with somebody who is your soulmate, if you believe in that sort of thing, or at least the best match for you.
Yeah.
And, maybe you've dated for years and you've met some people and they're nice, or maybe you've met other people and it hasn't worked out and you've broken it off. You've learned some things from the various relationships. And then one day, after sorting through all of these different people that you've dated in the past, you meet the one. And so suddenly you have this amazing feeling of, I can't wait to wake up every day because that person is waiting for me, and I can't wait to spend time with that person. And it's that same feeling of excitement and enthusiasm that you have when you meet that first love, that wonderful love.
Yeah.
And in time, with a soulmate, those intense feelings begin to settle out into more comfortable, secure, and this is right feelings, where it's still great and it's still what you want to wake up and do every day, but you're not so obsessed with it that you're forgetting to eat and sleep and get up out of your chair. That's what happened for me when I first found my passion for blogging and coaching was, I'd sit down at 7 in the morning and work all day and forget I still had my pajamas on and I hadn't gone out to exercise, and One of my daughters said, "You tell us not to be on the computer, and you're on it all day long. What's going on with you?" So you have to strive for balance eventually, and you do get there. But that's the way passion feels for me. That's the way it has felt for me. That you feel like you're in the right place, doing the right thing. Just there's that click.
Yeah, yeah.
Wham! I found it.
No, totally. That's actually the coolest and best description of living your passion that I've heard. I really, really like that. It fully resonated. I was thinking about my whole story with my wife, and so that just kind of like falling into place like that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So I'm curious though, like once you hit that point of balance, is the passion still like, is it still? I mean, maybe not to that extent, or how, you know what I mean. So you've said you got to that point, like even a marriage or in a romantic relationship, you get to that point of balance. And from the analogy, it sounds like it'd be similar in following your career path or whatever. You're living your passion. Once you hit that balance, how do you keep that fire alive?
Yeah, I think same way with a relationship. You pay attention to it. You tend to it. You get some spontaneity and new things going on. You look for new ways to engage and to bring life into the thing that you feel so passionate about. It's pretty easy with blogging because there's so much going on out there. It's very easy to find something new and interesting to pursue and new ideas and so again, you kind of have to remember to focus as well as re-energize. But I find that in spite of the fact I've been doing this for several years, this is the work I can't not do. I stole that line from Scott Densmore, who's another passion expert. Yeah, but it is. I mean, even on days where I don't feel great or I'm tired or whatever, I find myself just coming back to my computer because something's intriguing, I feel like there's something that needs to be said or somebody I need to engage with. So it's calling me all the time, even when it's not calling me with, bells and whistles. It's always there. I always want to go back to it.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's getting to that point where it's a little more settled out. It's a much more comfortable place to be. Just like when you're in love and, when you're first in love and you're so crazy you can hardly breathe or sleep or whatever, you're worn out from it. So it's great to be in a place where you feel like I'm doing the right thing. This is what I was meant to do. But I can get up and go exercise, or I can get up and go fix my lunch or go tend to my children or whatever and not feel like guilty or wrong or whatever.
Yeah. Got it.
The balanced state is great place to be.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I can resonate with that. And that's interesting with you too, because you do so much. I mean, I was reading your blog. You run 2 different blogs. You got a ton of different courses. You got the Habit course with Leo Babauta from Zen Habits. You get the Passion course. You've written 2 different books. You're a blog coach and a life passion coach. And you're a mom as well. How do you manage all of that? That's I mean, I know people who with one of those things it's almost too much, right? So, but that's a lot that you manage. How do you do that? How do you make that happen?
I don't know. I would say that part of it is the passion, because I think you're really energized when you love what you do.
Yeah.
When you don't like what you're doing, there's resistance. So it takes you twice as long to get things done, having to force yourself. But I'm playing to my strengths. I like to write. It's natural for me. I like to help people. That's natural for me. And that creative force just sort of, pushes you through to do all of those things.
Yeah.
Plus, this is my full-time job. I'm here at my desk, by 7:30 in the morning and working until regular work hours. So some people do this part-time. Some people do it after their real job. So for me, it has been my focus 5 or 6 days a week for several years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And now, I mentioned that you do that. You run a habit course with Leo as well. And
right.
What are the productivity secrets that you might have in order to build habits for success? Because ultimately, at least for the way I see it, and I'd love your thoughts on it as well, is that success is, a matter of having those habits. It's just cultivating certain habits that lead to the results we want over time, right?
Yes. That's right. Yeah, there's a process to habit building too, and that's something we teach in that course.
Yeah.
That begins with, it's really important if you're going to start a new habit and say maybe you want to be a writer, or maybe you want to learn to meditate, or whatever the thing is that you want to learn to do. Now I'm talking about creating habits, not dropping them. But creating habits, you want to start very small. Whatever it is, if it's running or whatever, break it down into something that you can do in 5 minutes to begin with.
Yeah.
Whether it's just getting up and putting on your running shoes and walking out the door. And you want to pick a time of day where you can attach that 5-minute habit to a trigger, which is an already established habit, like brushing your teeth or making your coffee, something you already do automatically. So that habit triggers you to begin the 5-minute new habit. And 5 minutes is so easy to do that, you're not going to resist that so much. And you do that for a week or two until you establish that time and that trigger as the point in your day when you're going to work on that habit. And then you slowly build up your time so that it becomes automatic, because what you're really doing is rewiring your brain. You're rewiring the brain chemistry to create new neural pathways. And that's what happens when you're making habits. You're creating new neural pathways. And it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the size of your habit, to rewire your brain.
Yeah.
There are other things you can do, too, like have an accountability system that keeps you on track, giving yourself a reward immediately after you do the habit. That helps to reinforce it. There's a whole course on that as well.
No, that's what I love. I mean, you got so many fantastic courses. It's really so. Tell us about, and your flagship one now is the Discover Your Passion course, right?
It's called the Path to Passion.
Path to Passion. All right, got it. Okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about how, like, if somebody's interested? Because I mean, I think your insight so far has been fantastic, and I'm sure people will be interested in terms not just of that course, but also building habits. Because, like I said, that's so fundamental to success. So, can you tell us just a little bit about that course and how it works? What's the breakdown? You've kind of addressed some of it earlier in the interview, but just more at the logistical in terms of how that course, what it's like to go through that course.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. It's people can find out more information at pathtopassioncourse.com. But the course itself is on a members-only website, and it includes a wide variety of different mediums like articles and videos and audios and case studies, and there are teleseminars with guest experts, so there's a ton of material. And people will become a member of the website, and they will have access to all of that material. And they follow it in a sequential order, similar to what I told you about earlier, that the self-investigation and breaking down roadblocks and rebuilding what you're interested in. And they follow that step by step. And there's a workbook with an assignment for every lesson. So they'll read a lesson, and they'll go directly and do the assignment. And sometimes the assignment includes an assessment or some tool that they need to follow through with. So it's a process of just learning more and more and more, and then narrowing down the field of interest and opportunities, and making commitments about what actions you're going to take to learn more about those interests based on what you learn about yourself, what your values are, what your mission is for your life, and your vision is for your life. So you create all these tools for yourself beforehand, and then you apply those tools to uncovering your passion.
Got it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing some of the secrets that are involved in this course as well as the habits course, because I think that's really valuable to give at least a taste of what's, to expand upon what could be what's more in that course.
Yeah, I think most people intuitively know a lot of these things, and I'm not saying this to drive them away from my courses, because I really think the courses will help them. It's more that confusion factor, not knowing where to begin, not knowing exactly what pieces to look at and how to hone down the information. You just need someone to make it clear for you. You just need someone to make it clear and show you, okay, you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and just lead you through it, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed with a very subjective kind of topic like that.
Yeah.
Not like how to put a motor in your car, I mean, you follow an instruction manual pretty easily, but with building habits or finding your passion, those are sort of concepts that are hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah. And that's cool that you've created an instructional manual for that as well, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what it is. Absolutely.
That's really great. I can totally resonate too, because being a coach myself, and like I've worked with other coaches as well. I actually have a coach. My coach is a coach. I think what it does is just like you said, it gets you out of your own head, right? So you can then have that support and that accountability, that structure you need.
Totally, and just a sense of confidence that okay, what I'm thinking and what I want to do is not totally off the charts. I'm not weird. This is reasonable. I can do this. It gives you that sense that, somebody out there knows what I'm struggling with and gets me.
Yeah.
And that's a huge feeling.
Yeah, of course, totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of it, like on one of the well, I've watched a video on your About Me page on your site, and you actually talk about how often people think living your passion means I got to go quit my job right now and go do something that's even more scary. And on the video, you say like it doesn't have to be that, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be quitting your job. And like you were just saying, it when you have somebody to support you. So can you talk about how it like just to kind of elaborate upon how it doesn't have to be quitting your job and what other pathways to passion there are other than just quitting your job tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes it isn't practical to quit your job.
Yeah.
If you have a family and you really need a certain income for various reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, naturally, your job is a huge part of your life. It takes up, 8 to 10 hours a day. And so if you're in a job you hate, and so you're unhappy 8 to 10 hours a day, that's not optimal. You want to be somewhere at least that you're reasonably happy.
Yeah.
It's not passionate. But if you can't change, then you find your passion and you live it in some other way, whether you're volunteering, whether you're doing it as a side project, whether it's a hobby, however you can begin to live it. The guy who wrote the book, The Kite Runner, can't remember his name right now, but you know the book I'm talking about, In a Thousand Splendid Suns. He wrote those two books.
Yeah.
He was a medical doctor before he wrote that book, and he wrote on the side. He loved writing, and he wrote on the side. And he eventually, the book became a bestseller, and he eventually was able to quit his job as a medical doctor and be a writer full time. And, most people would say, oh, you're going to give up your medical degree to go writing? But he began slowly. He did it as a hobby. His passion for it was such, and his natural inclination was such that it began to overtake his life.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's how passions start, that maybe you're volunteering somewhere and people say, my God, you're so great at this. Let me offer you a job doing this. Or I know somebody who could really use your talents. Opportunities tend to come your way when you're enthusiastic and eager to do something, even if it's for free.
Yeah. No, that's great.
It's better to have a little passion, too, than none at all. It's better to be doing something in your life that you're excited about doing. Even if you're unhappy at work, at least oh, today I get to go home and paint.
Yeah.
Whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and I love the way you kind of, because more often than not, I've heard that living your passion means you got to quit tomorrow, and that's a lot more scary for some people who it's just harder to do if you got family or whatever. So I like the way you break that down. That really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
really cool.
And if you can kind of keep in your mind that one day maybe I'll be able to make this my full-time career, or I'll be able to spend more time doing it, or maybe I'll work part-time so that I can do more of this.
Yeah.
There are a lot of decisions to be made around living your passion and choices. Once you find something you love, you tend to focus less on, gee, I need a new car, or I need this new furniture for my house, or I've got to go on this fancy vacation, because when you're engaged in life every day, when you're doing something like, I love doing this, all those other things are meaningless. They become so much less important to you.
Yeah.
So you don't need quite as much when you're passionate.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. So there's actually a question, are you speaking of like the other stuff becoming meaningless this is a question I love asking anybody. I was a philosophy major in school, so so I love asking this question.
Philosophy minor, so there we go.
Oh wow, okay, perfect. So you'll probably resonate with this. So Joseph Campbell, he once said that life has no meaning. Each of us has meaning, and we bring it to life. It is a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer. So the question that I love hearing from anybody I talk to really is, what is the meaning that you bring to your life?
Well, I would have to say living passionately. I think life is a series of present moments. Yeah. There isn't, the future isn't real. It's projection. The past is gone, so it's not real. So the only reality that we have is what's happening right now. And if you are doing something passionately right now, then you're really living life and you're bringing meaning to your life. Yeah. You bring meaning to every single moment that you live, then once your life is over, you will have had a meaningful life. And so that's sort of my philosophy on cool. How to live meaningfully.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank you. I love that.
You're welcome.
So one final thing, just for the last kind of takeaways for readers, like if you had to say like one actionable thing that they could go implement, go do for anybody watching this after they watch this, like what are some like direct actions to go take?
Yeah, well, I would say the first direct action to take is to carve out the time to find your passion. It's not going to fall in your lap or come to the door. Mm-hmm. You've got to make it happen. It takes time, just like anything.
Yeah.
And you have to say, okay, I'm going to take Saturday mornings from 9 to 11, and that's going to be my passion time, and that's going to be the time that I do the work of finding my passion. And, you've got to make that happen. You got to go to your calendar and sit down and put a line and put 9 to 11 passion work.
Yeah.
And people don't take the time to do that. I'd say one great exercise is defining your core values. And if you don't know what your core values are, these are your guiding principles of your life that really are the non-negotiables, the things that are most important to you. And I ask people and my clients to narrow it down to their top 5 or 6 for both their personal life and their career life. What are those value words that are most important to you? Like for me, it would be love, passion, creativity, connection. I can't think of all of them, but those are the 4 that come to my mind. And so I want all of my important aspects of my life to be centered around and supporting those values, because those are sort of the foundational piece of what your passion is going to be. That's a great place to start. And then I'd also suggest taking a free online personality test. If you haven't done that before, a Myers-Briggs personality test, and just get familiar with your basic personality type, what your natural instincts and inclinations are, your skills, what kinds of careers and aptitudes that they suggest that you pursue.
Yeah.
It just helps focus you a little bit. It doesn't define you, and you shouldn't make all decisions just based on a personality assessment, but I think it's a really valuable tool.
Got it.
And then one final thing I would suggest people do is write down all the skills that you have, even skills that you may not consider to be marketable skills. Like I never thought my ability to listen and offer advice and input to my friends was a marketable skill. I just thought, oh, I'm just a nice person doing something everybody does.
Yeah.
But it was a marketable skill. Not everybody has the ability to be intuitive and to listen carefully and help people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I became a coach that I realized, gosh, these skills, these internal skills that I have, I can use toward a career. So think about those things that you may not consider as really marketable skills, plus the skills that you do have, and pick out the ones that are really the most valuable to you, the ones that bring you joy, the ones you would love to spend your time doing most often.
Yeah.
And see how those skills match up with your values. And those will give you clues to some of the things that you might want to do as your passion. And as you go through your search, be sure you go back to those skills and to those values and say, does this thing that interests me, does it reflect the skills that I love the most and the values that are most important to me? And that'll help you make some of those hard decisions.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great input. A lot of great actions to take away. So thank you so much. Again, the insight that you shared and everything that's I've gotten so much value out of it. I'm sure anybody listening has as well. So really appreciate your time, Mary. Yeah.
My pleasure. Absolutely. I hope your readers enjoy it, and thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed speaking with you. So thank you again, and again for your authenticity and just openness and sharing all your wisdom. Really appreciate it. I look forward to staying in touch.
Hope you'll have me back sometime.
Definitely. I look forward to it.
Okay.
Have a good one, Barry.
You too.
How awesome was that? You know, there was a very specific reason I wanted to share this with you today, because I'm just recently embarked upon this journey around the world. I've technically only run across one country, which was Singapore, where I ran 33 miles across the country. Although I have skied 350 miles across the ice cap in Greenland, that's part of Denmark, so it doesn't really count as a country. So I'm just very early in this journey, but I am waking up every day filled with just fire. I am living my passion. I want you to be able to do the same. That's why I brought Barry on the show. That's why I wanted her to share your wisdom with you. Some of her tips are just gold. She really knows what she's talking about. She's living her dream. You saw that she's managing, just juggling so many balls at one time, and she's still able to do it all. She's a mom. She's running a couple of different businesses. She's got 2 different blogs, running so many products. It's truly amazing. You can do the same. Check her website out. I highly recommend you sign up, and I do recommend her Path to Passion course. The link you're going to see below is not even an affiliate link, so I'm not going to get anything out of it. I just want you to benefit from her wisdom because it's really amazing. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Remember, if you like this interview, check out existingtoliving.com, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and leave your comments over there. I want to hear what you got out of this. What was your biggest takeaway? How will you take one step to get comfortable with the uncomfortable? How will you take that one step to start living your passion today? Right after I'm watching this, I'm about to go for a run, so that's what I'm going to do. and I can't wait to hear what you're going to do. Share that with me. And until we meet again, remember, life is your playground. Go play with joy and passion.